In terms of pop culture interpretations of skating, we are all standing in the shadows of the cutting edge. Am I wrong? Like, has there ever been anything to compete with that?
I don't think so.
Welcome to Landline, the podcast where pop culture gets some context. I'm Mary Mahoney, your millennial friend with too many interests and not enough friends willing to talk on the phone. Today, I want to talk about figure skating, one of my great loves. I've got a great guest to help us prepare for the upcoming Olympics. My guest today is Maura Sullivan Hill, an author, skating journalist, a skating coach, and an all-around figure skating superfan. Her book, Legends of Women's Figure Skating, came out this past November. On this episode, you're going to hear us talk about the various competitions coming up in the games, the lore surrounding today's figure skaters, and the ways sports is a window into our world right now. She also did let me know that the pachinko is not technically possible, and that is something that's going to take me some time to sit with. If you're listening to this ahead of the games, you can join Maura and I to chat as we watch some of this year's figure skating competition. I'll share more information on how to do that at the end of the episode and in the show notes. Without further ado, here's my chat with Maura. Maura, you reached out to me about figure skating, and little did you know that this is one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite historical rabbit holes. And I'm so excited to have you here to kind of help us prepare for what I just said to you off air. Well, I'm predicting be an extremely messy Winter Olympics.
I think so. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and connect. I had a feeling from some of your other writings, episodes, and Dolls of Our Lives that this topic resonated with you. So happy to be here to chat.
And I know that I have the right person because, again, as we discussed off air, you indicated that you have a Michelle Kwan snow globe. I can see it behind you.
I do. My Michelle Kwan snow globe. It comes out at the holidays every year, and then just leave it up for a little more cheer through the winter. She's my hero.
I understand that. And I'm just going to say that I really believe that Ambassador Kwan, and I do want to insist on her official honorary title.
Yes, as we should.
Ambassador Kwan Snow Globe deserves to be up year round in your home, Maura. And I just maybe just think about it. I don't want to, it feels wrong to start an episode by dictating how a guest should live
Sounds like
life.
A great idea to me. Respect to Ambassador Kwan. It should be up all year.
And you have her book, I see, next to the snow globe. I mean, this is really great for an audio podcast, but I just want people to know that you are on the right side of history. And maybe by way of introduction, you're a journalist, you're an expert on figure skating. You've written a great book about it. Do you want to tell us the title of your book before we get involved in our conversation? I forget.
Thank you. Yes. So it's called Legends of Women's Figure Skating, and it is profiles of 28 of the greatest women skaters in the sport's history. And it's a kid's book. It's written for, 3rd through 7th grade readers, but it's also a really fun walk down memory lane for any fan of the sport or someone who wants to learn more about skating before the Olympics. The 3 U.S. women who will be skating in Milan are in the book too. So
wow.
Lots to learn.
Does your book cover that Michelle Kwan should have won the gold medal?
I wish it could have. I when I was writing it, my draft for Michelle's bio was the longest one, and I had to do a lot of editing because I had so much to say about her. Although I did learn a lot of interesting things about some of her rivals that at the time, as a Michelle fan, I wrote them off. I really wrote off Irina Slutskaya and Tara Lipinski, and just couldn't look at them. And then doing research for the book, I thought, wow, they have very interesting stories that I could have maybe paid more attention to at the time.
Wow.
But Michelle is on the cover. I did suggest that to
I was going to ask, was that your choice? Because that's the right choice.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
It's taken me decades to have a personal reconsideration of Tara Lipinski and her recent, she's appearing on Traders right now. I think, that's great. Her commentary work with Johnny Weir, which I'm sure we'll discuss. I think that's really helped her, image in my head, her PR campaign that was much needed for me personally. And also,
Me too.
She has taken a stance, or she's done some really interesting work promoting the history of figure skating. You pointed me to a documentary I watched last night called Meddling, which is about a huge controversy in figure skating of Jamie Soleil. Is that how you say her last name?
Saleh.
Yeah. Okay, I tried to learn French on Duolingo and, quixotically chose the time of the birth of my son is the moment when I was going to kick this off. I was doing it with a very good friend of mine, Abby, if you're listening, I know you are. And she is now much further ahead than me and has been kind to me about it. Yeah, imagine that. But I was like, yeah, no problem. I'm going to learn French right now. No, did not learn French. Was reminded of that.
Got a couple other things going on.
Spoiler alert, I have not learned French. But watching this documentary last night when they were saying their names of David Pelletier, is that correct?
Yeah. Peltier? Yeah,
Peltier?
I think you did it pretty well.
Thank you for that, Maura. But I was reminded of my own limitations there. But, Tara and her husband produced this documentary. We can get into that as well. But there's such a rich history. Like, was it difficult for you to pick 18 women in the history?
Oh my gosh.
To write about?
Well, 28. It's 28. And I asked for more and they said no.
And that's sexism, okay?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This book, it's part of a series. There's a Legends of Women's Gymnastics as well. There's an NFL Stars one. I think there's a soccer one as well. It's part of a series from Abbeville Press is the publisher. And so, yes, I asked for more. It was hard to pick 28. We wanted to include the 3 who are going to the Olympics. Okay. And thankfully, this was due last April. So I hedged my bets and thought, I think it will be these 3. They were the leaders of the pack. And yes, so thankfully, that is the Olympic team who's in the book. But so I wanted to sort of group them as legends in the making and then have 28 other skaters. And they said, nope. That you have to include. I know. Yeah. I might have been splitting hairs about the definition of legend.
Okay.
Which fair. These 3 they are fantastic and are skating into legend status here in Milan. But there's so much skating history. It was really hard to do 28.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, I have ordered the book. It hasn't reached me in time.
Thank you. I'm
very excited to read it. But, just as a spoiler, is Tonya Harding in the book?
She is not in the book. Nancy Kerrigan is in the book. Okay. I did have to think a lot about how to describe that situation for a younger audience, but I think I did okay.
Yeah,
hopefully.
That's complicated. I mean, I, Tonya isn't really for kids, or Price of Gold, the documentary on which it's based, which I think is better than the film. But, I think that's a great entry point into our conversation. I'd love for people to check out your book. I'm very excited to receive your book. I'm not a child. I'm not your intended audience. I mean, legally, I'm not a child. Intellectually, spiritually, who knows? But, what's really interesting about the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan, storyline, and I do want to purposefully call it a storyline. I think figure skating is something that lends itself as a sport to conversations about so many different things, right? Like you could use it to tell stories about class, like Tonya Harding's reappraisal in our public imagination has really become a story about who can afford to compete in figure skating. Like not everyone has equal access or opportunities. And you could tell a story about gender, like women being called ladies until when? 2022?
Just a few years ago, yes.
Or something in the Olympics.
Yes.
Like, that's crazy. Or like gender and sexuality, like we'll talk about that. Or race, and power and nationalism and like all of these different stories. And we are going to talk about Finding Her Edge, which is a very misguided Netflix show, which I am watching and almost described to you in real time, which I apologize for before we started recording. But all to say, I think that figure skating lends itself to such camp pop culture, like The Cutting Edge, iconic movie, and so many other things because it's so fraught with narratives. So I guess I'm just wondering, like coming into the Winter Olympics, like what are some big like themes or the stories that are really top of mind for you?
Sure. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think starting with the women's skating, not the ladies anymore.
Yes.
That is definitely top of mind from working on this book for the past year. And it's going to be a very different Olympics. Russian women have won the last 3 Olympic gold medals. And Russian skaters in all events have been banned since 2022 because of the invasion of Ukraine. So we haven't had Russians on the international scene for the last few years. And I, as a viewer, I have not missed that style of skating. I found it to be kind of like very cookie cutter. All these very, very young, tiny people doing these big jumps.
Yes, if I can intervene, like in terms of how the style is described, the Russian style, I was watching that meddling documentary as I described, and there was a commentator, a journalist, who basically summarized it saying, Russian skating is more ballet aesthetic, American skating or Western is more, air quotes, Broadway, which I thought were like musical theater, which I actually think is sort of the way it's that was said was intended to be somewhat demeaning of the Western style, when I actually think, I mean, I'm a Broadway fan, I'm a musical theater fan, so that to me is a compliment. But it's almost like there's more, is that a way of saying like it's more emotional? Like, is that how we understand the difference between the two?
Maybe. I think coming from a background too, where I was a skater, I'm a coach now, the Russian style definitely has those ballet roots, and it's like very refined and good posture. And then the Western style can be a little more showy. And I think you're right. It is more emotional. You can connect with it a little more. I think the Russian skating that I was saying I don't quite miss is it felt a little detached. They were just out there, jump, 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 jump.
Like going, whereas they know how to score points, so they're just kind of going through the motions.
100%. Yes. Yeah, really well put. Whereas I love watching a skater with Dick Button was the commentator for a long time on TV, and he said Michelle Kwan would have her heart on her sleeve.
Okay.
Right?
We just have to say it. I'm sorry. I wasn't even going to go here. Michelle Kwan should have won the gold medal because of her intangibles. Yes. This is a skater who could communicate emotion in a way no other skater has ever communicated emotion. She made you feel things. And she was technically so skilled. And I'm not being paid by Ambassador Kwan to say this. I feel this as a fan. And I'm not dinging Tara Lipinski, also a great skater. But I'm just saying, like, I think if you have those intangibles, and in a way it's kind of a story about gender in a sense, like women who have these what are called soft skills, itself a demeaning title, often don't get valued for those skills that they have as parents, as partners, in the workplace. And yet in skating too, even in a competition among women, if you bring that intangible soft skill, it's not going to get you points.
Yeah, especially in the current iteration of the judging system, which meddling really explains what happened that led to the international judging system.
Can you describe, briefly for people who don't want to invest in the 4 episodes I just watched, which I highly recommend. It was very entertaining.
It's really good, yeah.
What happened that completely changed how this is scored?
Yes. So at the 2002 Olympics, this was the biggest news story. Some people might remember it. It was news outside of skating. There was there was some controversy in the results in the pairs event. A Russian team won with what from the outside looked like a less clean, polished skate than a Canadian team. And then the ice dance event finished where a French team won. And then a judge from France came forward and said she was pressured to score teams a certain way. So the thought was that Russia and France colluded to get the pairs and the dance gold medals, and the Canadians were unjustly kept from their gold medal, and the resolution was to award 2 gold medals. They had another medal ceremony. The Russians had to go for the second medal ceremony, which is kind of insane to think about now.
Uncomfortable. Even I remember
Yes.
watching it live and watching it back in the documentary. It was like, why did you invite, like, why did they have to be here? This is so awkward.
Yes. So tough to think
So
about.
painful.
Yeah. Ugh. So because the judging in skating is subjective. It's still subjective today, even though they have, because of this, completely remade the points system. So up until probably about 2003, I think they still used it through 2003, scores were out of 6.0 was a perfect mark. So as Michelle Kwan lovers, we know that
Yes.
she got lots of 6.0s. Actually, hold on. This is pretty funny. I've been used to be 6.0.
Oh my God.
I have a prop.
You're holding up your 6.0 score. I'm feeling pressured now, like hosting this podcast. I'm like, what if I don't get the 6.0?
Oh my gosh.
I'm scared.
You get the 6.0. I've been cleaning my office a little bit. So this is from the 2001 U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Boston, where I grew up, as Christmas gift of my life. I am a hoarder that I still have this, but they handed out these little, like on a popsicle stick, 6.0 signs. And if someone skated really well, we waved our 6.0 signs. We wanted that, that Michelle Kwan's intangibles, as much as they could be marked, were given 6.0s.
6.0. And there was like a technical score, right? So everyone would get up to 6. You could, if you were a judge, you could do up to 6 for a technical score, and then the artistic score. Is that right? And that's where things go off the rails.
A little bit. That's where their opinions, judges are people too, we like to say. Judges are the first row of the audience. And it was one number that had to encompass everything on the technical side and the artistic side. So where they decided to make changes, and they call it the international judging system now, is every element is given a point value, a base value, that based on the difficulty. And then you can earn like style points, for lack of a better word. We call it grade of execution. You probably heard Tara and Johnny talk about this. But so if you do your jump, your triple axel is done really well, you can earn up to +5.
Okay.
Or as low as -5 if it's not done well, if it's a fall. So you can earn or lose points either way of the base value for the technical side. And then there's also the artistic marks. Now we call it presentation, and they broke that into different categories, like skating skills, how they move across the ice, presentation, how they perform, and composition, how the program's put together. So that's sort of their attempt to make some things more tangible and more exact and more fair. The intent was definitely to make it more fair. And I think a lot of people in skating might say it's made it a little bit where like everybody's doing the same thing, because the same thing
little paint by number. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like you're going to see a lot of cartwheels out of spins, because that's going to earn people the max level, the max number of points.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I don't know that every program calls for a cartwheel.
Out of a spin.
Out of a spin. Yeah, like Schindler's List doesn't. I've seen a Schindler's List with a cartwheel, and it just didn't. I know they wanted the points, but that sort of artistic integrity that I felt like skating has had it's crazy. Going a little bit. It's crazy.
That is crazy. And yes, I mean, this is kind of what we're talking about like some of the artistic choices with skating. It's like you do find yourself in a position where you're being asked to watch someone skate a Schindler's List routine and do a cartwheel, and like
right, and they're just following the rules, you know, like
and
you can't even fault them.
Okay, and like added to all of this, based on what you're saying, like part of the intention with the revision, to my understanding, was to try to combat the foreign policy of it all, which is also bound up in the Olympics, because the voting blocks that would happen under the previous system were like Russia and China would vote together. Mm-hmm. And you have this almost like Cold War alliance of like Europe, the US, Canada versus Russia, China, and France somehow is like hanging in the balance, which sort of makes no sense, but like diplomatically, but in the Olympics it did. So, I mean, it's like the Olympics is so complicated because it's all of these different things at once, like figure skating politics and different understandings of style versus like, you know, we were just saying off here, like Trump just announced ICE agents are coming to do security at the Olympics, which nobody wants. Ice, get out of here.
Yes.
And, you know, so it's just like, it's so fraught. But with that in mind, I mean, I think it's like, I've been stressed out thinking, like, how do we even get our hands around this topic? Like, how there's so much to unpack. So I think you invited us to think about the women's program first. Like, do we want to kind of take that on, and we'll kind of go through different competitions and just kind of like see what emerges? Because it is like, you could see the world in a grain of sand. Like, you can see everything in figure skating. And so I think our conversation will kind of like bear that out. But you brought us into the women's competition. Where should we start?
Sure. I think we can start with the U.S. skaters.
Yeah,
think about
please.
Team USA first, because, you know, we talked a little bit about Tanya Harding and Nancy, and I think skating in pop culture sometimes has this, it's portrayed as like the, you know, the rivalries, and they hate each other and things like that. And the 3 skaters from the U.S. who are going to the Olympics this year are the complete opposite of that. And it's very cool to see. We have Amber Glenn is the now 3-time U.S. champion. And she's 26. She's a little older. I see her in this like big sister role. And then the other 2 skaters, we have Alyssa Liu, who is, she's just 20. And then Isabeau Levito is 18. So the 3 of them they're so funny together. There were a lot of clips circulating of their press conferences at nationals. They just play off each other. You can tell they're friends. They get along. Yeah, it's cool to see. As someone who, like, my students at the rink, I'm excited that this is the group of skaters they'll look up to as you know, as they're growing up in the sport. And so these 3 U.S. skaters are incredible. They all could have a chance to medal. Alyssa Liu is fascinating in that she might be a name people recognize from the last Olympics. She was at the 2022 Olympics. She had this incredible career. She was the youngest U.S. champion. She dethroned Tara Lipinski when Alyssa was 13 when she won her first U.S. title. It's crazy. So I was there. She could barely see it, like, over the microphone in the press conference. She was so little. And so she won a lot when she was younger. She did quads that go around 4 times in the air. She did triple axels. She had all these really high difficulty elements. And then she went to the Olympics when she was 16. She won a world medal that year. And then she retired when she was 16. Which, like, that doesn't happen. I know. Like, you don't hear that in most others. Maybe gymnastics, too. Like, the athletes are younger. But, and, like, all props to her. She said, I want to be a regular kid. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to do other things. She went off to college. She went to UCLA for a year. And then she decided she missed skating. She had to go find her skates. She tells the story, like, where are my skates? And she decided to make a comeback and then won the world championships, like, within her first year back. It was on home ice in Boston last March. So it's just crazy what it's not done in skating to come back like that. It's really difficult. It's not done because it's so hard. And she has made it look easy, and she's made it look really fun. She was on 60 Minutes. Her interview was really interesting. And she's talking about, like, she's taking ownership of her skating now. Before it was her dad a little bit, her coaches. And you can just tell she's having so much fun. And it's so fun as a viewer to see someone enjoy their skating. Yeah. Some of these Russian skaters I mentioned and the last Olympics, like, nobody looked like they were enjoying themselves. It looked so intense. And so it's so cool to see someone, like, doing it for themselves and having fun like Alyssa is. So she's one to watch. And she does not fit sort of the ice princess mold that sometimes women skaters have to fit into. She's just her own person. She dyed these, like, rings into her hair between the short program and the free skate at nationals. She does it every year anyway, but she, like, she toned it a lot more or something, she said.
It's interesting that you mentioned kind of like this princess archetype, because I feel like that runs so deep in the history of figure skating, and also just this idea of like the child star syndrome, almost, of like the parents who are forcing their kids to do this, and then you kind of feel awkward watching because you're like, well, they're such a beautiful skater, I love watching them perform, and like I feel sad because they don't seem like they want to do this. Like, has that shift come from the skaters, or is it, the ISU, are they doing anything to change the culture?
I think a little bit of both. It's definitely coming from the skaters. I think Alyssa's going to be a great role model on that point. And like I said, these three and the other women who were in the top at the U.S. Nationals who maybe aren't going to the Olympics, like it's just a good group of skaters who are very supportive of each other, and you can tell are there because they love it. And I also think that ISU has tried to address this a little bit. They recently upped the age limit for the Olympics and for competition in general. You have to be 17 now. So like at a national competition, there's not an age limit. So who's to say there wouldn't be another 13-year-old, but we're not going to have like a 13, 14-year-old Olympic champion anymore. They've made some age limits to try and just address that it is like children out there in this high pressure, high intensity situation. And maybe it's better for older, almost adults to be out there handling it.
Yeah. Wow. And Amber is sort of the other age spectrum.
Yes.
And she seems to bring a lot to the sport. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I saw her like a prayer routine, which is spellbinding to me. I love it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you talk a little bit about like what she brings to the history of figure skating in this moment?
Yes, definitely. Amber's fantastic. Perseverance is what I always say when I'm talking about her. She won a junior U.S. title in 2014 and then didn't win a senior title until 2024. It was 10 years, and it was a long up and down journey. She's had injuries, mental health struggles. She's another skater who had to figure out, like, do I still want to do this? What am I doing here? And she said it was because she loved it. She, despite all the ups and downs and the struggles, she really wanted to be out on the ice. So she had a 10-year gap there between titles. Now she's won 3 in a row. And she is so good for the sport for so many reasons. For the way she is supporting the skaters younger than her, that kind of big sister role that I was talking about. But she's also someone who has talked openly about being a pansexual athlete and, what that means for her, and how she has found the most success on the ice when she started embracing her own identity, like who she really was. She maybe felt like she was trying to fit a little bit of that ice princess archetype, but she's been quoted saying this, not trying to put words in her mouth in any way, but she's found the most success since she's really just been herself, and that's really cool to see. And it is great for visibility in the sport, for people to see that you don't have to be one kind of athlete to be a national champion.
That's so powerful. And I mean, you mentioned Adam Rippon before, who I think was previously, is he the only out figure skater to win a medal prior to this?
He was the first, which this was in 2018. He was the first out skater to go to the Olympics and then to win a medal. He won bronze in the team event.
That's so crazy to me, because I mean, I guess it just shows you maybe the pull of, or like the power of homophobia in the figure skating culture and our culture more broadly before then. Because to me, like as a gay person, figure skating is so gay. And I say that as a compliment. Like,
yes,
it's a big part of queer culture. It's like, you can be camp. Like I see one of the other skaters did a set to Last Dance by Donna Summer. It's like, this is a sport designed for people with great taste, aka queer people. Like,
yes.
So it's so astounding to me. Like when I saw her perform, I was like, this is so moving to me that, this is an out woman who's like really like stepping into her own power and like, and as a result is thriving. And even if you're not a queer person, like just seeing someone embrace who they are without apology and then thrive as a part, like as a result, like what a great message, like for your young students, like for anybody else. So it's just like, I don't understand, like, were there movements before? Like, what's the history of being queer and figure skating? Like, was it just always like a no?
Kind of. Yeah. It's because it's kind of exactly what you say. From the outside, people make an assumption that it is like a queer environment. Or, you know, there's sort of stereotypes about boys who skate. Whatever their identity is, people be like, it's not football. It's like a gay or whatever activity. And that comes more from the outside. And then within the sport, it can be much more heteronormative for sure. I mean, we talked about the women's event just recently being renamed from ladies. There's also in ice dancing right now in the US, it's a man and a woman skate together, and the steps in the rule book were the mans and the ladies up until a couple years ago, and then they changed it to lead and follow. So there's certainly movement, but it's something that like people felt like they had to keep hidden for sure. Like people, like Johnny Weir is someone who was not out when he was competing, and maybe people made their assumptions about it, but he went to the Olympics in 2010 and 2006. Like that's not that long ago. And it was something that he felt like he kind of had to keep under wraps. People felt like if they were open about their identity in that way, it might affect their scores. That's that sort of subjective nature of the judging we were talking about, which is like hard to say and hard to think about.
Yeah, it's just, you kind of wonder like how storytelling about figure skating is going to evolve as like, I hope there's a greater acceptance of queerness within figure skating. It's like, it's interesting that we're having this moment around heated rivalry with like kind of like, how can we tell a story about like the appeal of male same-sex desire, where it's like men want intimacy with each other even if not sexual, and like the only way we can get that is through this story that's written by a queer woman, like, and men are still afraid to even just like admit that they want even just like friendships with other men. Like there's such like internalized, not just homophobia, but like internalized like aversion to intimacy, to being vulnerable. And I think figure skating like brings out, it requires so much vulnerability. I mean, again, Michelle Kwan, like not everyone is Michelle Kwan, but it's really sad to see that be demonized. So I guess it is like, just to say like, that's why it's so encouraging and empowering, even with the political climate that the US is in right now in participating in the games, to see these queer athletes both like supporting each other, these women supporting each other, and just like without apology being themselves. Like that's actually really radical in its own way.
It is. Yeah, definitely.
And the third American athlete, who is that? I want to make sure we give her due.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so that's Isabeau Levito, and her mom came to the U.S. from Milan, Italy. So this is like a very cool full circle moment for her.
Oh.
Her grandmother still lives there. She's got family there. So she's a skater who, as we were watching her rise in the sport, there was always that kind of pressure of like targeting towards Milan, where there was this family connection for her. So as a viewer, I'm so happy she gets to go and she's going to be there. It just felt like a pressure on her. And she definitely fits that more like lovely, elegant skater mode. And she's like light and airy on the ice. She's like a little bird just bouncing around. And she's got, her short program it's to that Zooby Zooby Zoo song, and it's just very like, she just like dances around the ice. She's really fun to watch.
Now, when it comes to song choice, what are some things you're seeing that are notable? Like, you know, what's the strategy here? Like, do you pick something that's popular, but then if you pick something that's too popular, is that going to make you seem like you're not artistic? Like, what's the school of thought?
That's such a good question. I think there's the school of thought, and then there's the current challenges with music rights are a huge challenge right now.
Oh, that's interesting. Say more about that.
So at the 2022 Olympics, an American pair team, Alexa Knierim and Brandon Fraser, skated to a cover of House of the Rising Sun. And the band that performed the cover song sued them and sued NBC for not asking permission. They were alleging they were profiting off of the use of the song without compensating them, which is kind of crazy to me that it's a cover song. And then on the flip side, Nathan Chen from the US won skating to Elton John. And Elton John tweeted, "Thanks for using my music." He had him out to the concert, like just a completely different approach. So, but this lawsuit has really kind of gotten the ball rolling with a lot of music rights issues. So skaters have to like go through this database and make sure the music is cleared for use. For it all has to do with TV broadcasting. If you watch skating on Peacock at all, it's only available for, I think, 48 hours, sometimes 72 if you're lucky to watch an event, and then it's taken off the streaming platform because of music rights issues. So
oh man,
that's a bummer artistically that's something that skaters have to worry about at all. So that's sort of one challenge they're working with. And then choosing their music it's often like the Olympics are in Italy, so people are skating to Italian songs or in Italian operas. They want to win over the audience there. And because the judges can kind of, I think I said this, like they're the first row of the audience. So if you get this big ovation from the crowd, that's going to kind of like sway the judges a little bit in your favor.
Interesting.
So it's definitely something that people pay attention to, skating to Italian music for sure. I think actually Isabeau's program, her free skate is Italian music. Yeah, Cinema Paradiso. She's skating to Italian music. And the short program, it's not just Zubi Zubi Zoo, it's all Sophia Loren music. So she kind of thought about her Italian audience.
Wow.
And I think in choosing music in general, skaters often, if someone has a lot of success with a particular song, then they want to use it too. And maybe that success will rub off on them. So we're probably going to see a lot of Moulin Rouge, a lot of Dune.
Skaters love to skate to Dune. What is up with that?
They love it. Yeah, it's almost last season
Moody?
especially.
Like, I
guess so. Certain music definitely sounds really good in a rink or an arena, so maybe Dune falls into that category. The best Dune this year, it's Spain's ice dance team, Olivia Smart and Tim Deek. They did a Dune program last year and are calling this Dune Part 2. I don't know if that means all the music is from the second movie, but they do a great job. That's a great Dune program.
So you know what music people are going to be skating to. Mm-hmm. What are some of your fave selections other than Dune Part 2?
So in the ice dance event, the requirement for their short program is called the rhythm dance in ice dance, and it has to be a certain style and theme. So the requirement this year is 90s dance party.
Great.
I was really excited about it. It has not come to fruition in the way maybe I imagined. A lot of "I'm Too Sexy."
Really?
Like, everyone's using that song. Yeah. It's like there's so much good music in the 90s. Is
anybody using the Spice Girls?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. So the team from Great Britain, Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson, are doing the Spice Girls. As everyone was hoping they would, they did. It was kind of like that music was theirs for the taking.
Oh my God.
So that's my favorite of the 90s. I'm very excited for their Spice Girls.
If Great Britain didn't use the Spice Girls, they should be disqualified because that's the only logical choice. And now I'm wondering, as we record this, if Brooklyn Beckham, who a few weeks ago now issued that, many images Instagram story diatribe about his family, which has now sent Victoria Beckham's music with the Spice Girls to the top of the Great British charts. Was that a campaign to prepare the way for this Olympic team to do well in the Olympics?
Maybe they're giving them momentum. They're going to be fighting for a medal, so maybe Victoria's on their side.
Wow. Before we get into ice dances, who do you think is going to win in the figure skating competition?
I would love to see Kiori Sakamoto from Japan win. She's a 3-time world champion. She was the bronze medalist last Olympics behind some Russians, and she has just had this long, fantastic career. She had this program to the Matrix where she lifted her leg up right over the wall by the judges. Everyone just loved her audacity. Yeah. And so she's another one who's very supportive of all the skaters around her as well in her own success. And so she's just had this long, awesome career. I think it'd be so cool if she capped it off with a gold medal. But between her, the U.S. women, other Japanese skaters, Monet Chiba, she skated the Last Dance program that we brought up. And then, some skaters from Europe. There's Luna Hendricks from Belgium is in the mix, and we'll see. But that's kind of I'm rooting for Kiori.
We shall see. Wow. Okay, well, let's get into ice dancing and what's going on in this sport. What do we need to know? Who's to watch, etc.?
Sure. Yeah. So ice dance, I always compare. It's like ballroom dance on ice, or kind of like Dancing with the Stars. They do the different styles, like a foxtrot or a waltz, things like that.
Okay.
So the roots of ice dance are those dances on the ice. And they sort of go around the ice in a circle. We call them the pattern dances. So that's the root of ice dance. And so they have a rhythm dance. That's like their short program that follows a style like the 90s. Sometimes it's a waltz, sometimes it's Latin. It's like a rumba or a salsa, something like that. And then the free dance is more free, like its name. And there's fewer requirements. There's more variety in terms of the style. So in ice dance, this Olympics it's kind of the swan song for a lot of teams who've been in the game for a long, long time, who've been at the top of their game for a long time. And so from the US, we have Madison Chalk and Evan Bates, and he is competing in his 5th Olympics.
That's insane.
I know. I'd have to look up. I don't know many skaters. He's one of a very few who would have competed at that many Olympics. 4 with Madison. He competed in Vancouver in 2010 with a different partner. And so they've won the last 3 world championships. So they're heavily favored. They're married. I've already seen like people.com is doing like the cute couple content with them. So you'll see lots of that. And they are doing Lenny Kravitz for their 90s program. And then they have a free skate that's a flamenco, where she has this very long skirt that everyone is stressed about.
Yeah, that seems fraud.
It is, yes. Everyone's a little worried. But it's a little different. She's playing the matador with the skirt, and he's a bull. So it's kind of a twist.
Okay.
It's a feminist matador, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Keep your eyes peeled. And then, so they don't have really a straight path to the top. There's another team from France, Laurence Fournier-Baudry and Guillaume Cizeron, and they just started skating together. They started competing this season. Guillaume Cizeron is a name that maybe people will know. He won the last Olympics with Gabriella Papadakis and the silver medal in 2018. Before that, they skated together since they were children.
Okay.
And this is a new team for a couple reasons. Papadakis is retired now. And then Laurence Fournier-Baudry used to skate with her boyfriend. They competed for both Denmark and Canada, but he has been banned for an ongoing investigation of sexual maltreatment is kind of the term they're using. So he's not allowed to compete, which that ended her career because they're a team. And so she still wanted to compete. And so she teamed up with Guillaume and was able to get French citizenship pretty quickly. And they have been winning a lot this season and getting really high scores. So they're kind of coming in late in the game. We don't know what will happen with them and with Chalk and Bates, who are kind of the favorites. But this new team is a little fraught, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, can we get into what's going on beneath the surface with this team and with the recent developments around Gabriella Papadakis? She has recently put out a memoir since her retirement in which she alleges, emotional abuse, psychological abuse. I don't think she alleges physical abuse, but I could be wrong about that, against her former partner, Cizeron. Like, the TLDR is she had gotten a job as a commentator for NBC for this Olympics and has since had that job offer rescinded because he has threatened to sue over the allegations she makes in her book. Is that correct?
Yes. And the tricky thing is the book is only in French. It's only available in France right now. So it's not something I've read or have gotten a copy of, but there's a lot of momentum that maybe there would be an English version. But so we've just been seeing these translations and these quotes of these allegations. But so, yes, so he sent a cease and desist letter to her and the publishers, and NBC's reasoning for no longer using her as a commentator is that she would not be unbiased when talking about him on the ice, which is tricky because when there's skaters who also work as commentators, they're entrenched in this world. They're all friends with each other. They all know each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a slippery slope kind of reasoning on the part of NBC. I think anybody can have some bias if you're bringing in these former athletes to commentate on people they used to compete with or against. And it's tricky. This
whole thing is so gross to me, and I'm further from it than you, so I feel like I can be a little freer, but there's no such thing as objectivity in any kind of analysis, period, full stop. And even in watching the meddling documentary you recommended, there's a moment where we learned that a judge for Ukraine was, penalized for cheating, for being part of this voting block in one competition. And then he's immediately invited to be an Olympic judge. Even though he has been found, actually dramatically, the Canadian judge tapes him without his knowledge when he calls her and is like, this team for third, France gets to be third. He just no hi, hello. He's like, so this is how we're voting. And she's hitting record and then dramatically plays it for, she reports it because she's been told well, we need proof. And it's really hard to prove this cheating. But so anyway, he's there's no ifs, ands, or buts. He cheated, or he was trying to influence the outcome of the competition, and then he's still allowed to be a judge at the Olympics. So when there are these conflicts in the sport, and then I think there was another case where someone was a judge who was married to the head of the French skating delegation, which is also a crazy conflict of interest. So it's this is a sport where people play fast and loose with, what is proper and right. And, admittedly, it's NBC who is making this designation, not the sport. But, we've seen this all the time, even in terms of the reaction to anything political. People post when Trump would say, if you posted anything on social media about Charlie Kirk, you should be fired. And companies were either enforcing that or not. It's companies get to make decisions, and it tells a story about them, about what they choose to, how they make these decisions. So, I mean, as you said, we only have translations, but the stuff she said that I was seeing online was she wrote about him being, quote, a controlling and, quote, demanding partner, and expressed a feeling of, quote, being under his grip, and said, quote, as long as I took a backseat role where Guillaume was the leader, everything went well. it's when I wanted to be an equal in this relationship that things started to become more and more difficult. And, you know, that's bad. Like, I don't care what goes on. That is not good. And it's just, you know, she said like she's devastated that this second career she was hoping to have is now like kind of over before it begins because of this. And I think it just is a reminder that like sports is such a reflection of our society, and like stuff that happens off the ice comes on the ice, including like relationship dynamics.
Definitely.
So that's just, it's very sad, this whole situation.
It reveals a couple sort of inherent issues in that when you talk about judges who are maybe married to people who work at the federations, or they're immediately invited back to judge the Olympics, that is not right. And also, judges are volunteers in skating, which so many people are shocked to learn. It's not like
Crazy.
Officials in the NFL. Yeah. So I think it's easy to say that should change, and for me not to have an idea of how they could do that, but I think that would be a good start. So judges are volunteers, and they're very often also the volunteers who work in the national federation. So it's all really intertwined, which makes it complicated. And I think in some ways it's really intertwined in a way that can be great and can be a supportive community. When we think about it, it was a year ago, the plane crash in DC, that 28 members of the skating community were killed, and the way the US skating community came together. There's that intertwinedness. It's not exactly a word, but can be great in some ways, and then it's very tricky in other ways, because like judges should be a professional. They should be compensated.
Yeah,
it takes
of course.
years and so much time for them to become Olympic level judges. And it's crazy to think it's a volunteer position. So it certainly makes it more complicated. And then I think too, what Gabriella is talking about in her book with her partnership with Guillaume is sort of, I think what she's trying to bring to light is sort of a larger overarching problem in the sport, where there are fewer men, and often they are prioritized or treated, put more on a pedestal to keep them there, to keep them around, to encourage them to stay involved in the sport. And then it results in situations where she feels the way she did, and that's certainly like an attitude that needs to be changed. It's all the way down to the lowest levels. I went to a competition with one of my students and saw there was a boy in her group, and I thought, well, the boy's gonna be up at the top. Like, the boy's gonna beat her. I hadn't seen him skate, but it's just something, you know, they're trying to, and I would love to encourage boys to skate. I'd love to encourage anyone to skate, but you don't want to do it at the expense of fairness.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like, it just seems to me as like someone outside of the sport that it's more work that needs to be done outside of the sport, in the sport, to normalize, you know, like what is like boy behavior, or kind of like the undoing the assumptions about what is like these like nuts gender norms around who can do what in sports, in society. And it just seems like, you know, with the Trump administration and everything else, like those boundaries, those binaries are hardening as opposed to breaking down, which is what would benefit the sport. Because on the one hand, you have like the trans policy saying women have to be sexed women at birth now to be considered competitors, when before it actually was loosening up to not be trans inclusive by any means, but at least be somewhat more like not as clear binary, where now it's like we've regressed, it seems, in terms of like even how we're defining who counts as a woman, which is ridiculous and gross. And then on the other hand, like with ice dancing, like to your point about not as many men, like you do have Gabriella and others, as you point out to me, who are trying to experiment or open up like having same-sex partnerships. Like, if we don't have as many men in the sport, like what do you do if you're a woman who loves ice dancing, you know? And like where are we at with that?
Yeah, that's definitely changing. And a huge reason for that is, so Gabriella skated with Madison Hubble, who's a US champion dancer. She's an Olympic medalist. She's a coach now. She has a team that will be competing in Milan at the Olympics. And so they skated together at a show called Art on Ice. So they've done performances, like they've shared stuff online, on Instagram. And they've skated together to raise awareness that like this is possible, this is interesting, people would want to watch it, and it's a way to increase, like to have more people have the opportunity to be on the ice and to skate with a partner. Ice dancing, solo ice dancing is growing as a facet of the sport, a little bit in response to how it is difficult to find a partner. And that's wonderful. Anything that gets more people on the ice, I'm for. Mm-hmm. But the pattern dances I talked about, those foxtrots and waltzes, they're made for two people to skate together, and the edges are supposed to work together. So any way we can kind of increase that opportunity would be fabulous. And so Canada has kind of led the way on that. They were the first country to open the door to same gender partners. And then Finland has as well. And then Great Britain said that it would be allowed. I don't know. I'd have to check if anyone has competed, but definitely in Canada and Finland, teams with two women have competed. So
I mean, I hope that's a cool change to hear about. And I hope that it filters into, the rest of the field. But yeah, it's a tough reminder that sports does reflect, the rest of society. But I do think like having skaters push for these changes, like that is really encouraging that, it can happen, and, seeing that happen is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. To see like two women who've had the utmost success at the Olympic level in this sport and then choose to partner up with each other, and how cool it was to watch them. That just, it made a huge difference.
If there's any like romance writers listening, if there's any screenwriters listening, like, can we make a TV show about that? Because that would be phenomenal. I was telling you before that I'm watching Finding Her Edge, which is a very misguided but incredibly watchable to me show on Netflix about ice dancing. Well, it's about many things, Maura. It's about life.
I need to turn it on, clearly.
I mean, speaking of music rights issues, that kind of blows my mind even more, because I was telling you, like, there are scenes where it's like, it doesn't even relate to what's going on in the story, but suddenly you just start hearing Patti Smith, Because the Night, and I'm like, what? Like, as a Patti Smith fan, I'm like, how do we have the budget for this at Netflix? And then it's like, yeah, admittedly mixed in with songs that sound like those fake songs that Bravo creates, but like, I'm hearing like The Killers like playing on this show, and I'm like, what? Wow. And okay, I was telling you, like, my wife was looking up stuff on Reddit because she was like, this is terrible. Like, my wife is a huge ice dancing fan, figure skating fan, and she was like, this show is not good. And it's not. Like, I will just say that, but it's so watchable because it has become camp to me. But someone on Reddit was like, oh, this is based on a book that's an adaptation of Jane Austen's Persuasion, which is my favorite all-time book. So now, like, I'm locked in. I have to see this through. And it's like, okay, I don't know. It's interesting that the stories they're telling are like kind of like that, when it's like, it would seem that there's things happening now which should inspire shows like this.
Yes, definitely. And I don't know if people have read The Favorites by Lane Fargo. That's a novel about ice dancing. It's very interesting. Yes. And so there's certain, there's some inspiration from real life skating in there. And then some of it is kind of just like a juicy novel to read, and maybe isn't true to life, but there's definitely, you can see where she drew some inspiration from Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer from Canada. That's the Moulin Rouge program you're probably seeing all over your timeline.
Okay. Yep. I've seen that. I mean, look, in terms of pop culture interpretations of skating, we are all standing in the shadows of the cutting edge. Am I wrong? Like, has there ever been anything to compete with that?
I don't think so.
What you're saying is it's unrealistic for me to tune in and see a pair do the pachinko.
It's true. Unfortunately. Yes, that's movie magic only. Right. But so pair skating, in contrast to ice dance, that's where you're going to find the overhead lifts. The male partner will lift up their partner. They'll throw them in jumps.
Terrifying.
And I was going to say it's very exciting. It's also a little terrifying. The the women who skate pairs are so brave and so tiny.
Yes.
So they are, they're just incredible. Pairs is definitely the discipline I know the least about. Like, I have in coaching singles, or I have, dabbled in ice dancing in my adult skating time. So I definitely know more about those, but pairs has got some great stories. So the Olympic champions from 2022 are making a comeback this year. Wang Jiangsui and Kong Han from China. And it's fascinating to me. Like, they won the Olympics on home ice, and you'd think that would sort of be like the pinnacle, and they could go put their feet up.
Right.
It was not a typical Olympics, of course. It was a COVID Olympics. It was in the bubble. There was not a crowd. So I'm sure they didn't maybe have the moments they imagined. But yeah, it's amazing to me they're coming back. But maybe that's why they're Olympians and I'm not. I'm like, they can go put their feet
I wouldn't
up.
come back after that.
Right? Yeah, like, you did it.
I peaked. Thank you.
Exactly. So they're back. They are not having a straightforward comeback. She's injured. They just competed this past weekend in Beijing at the Four Continents, and she like collapsed at the end of the short program. Yeah, so that also, colors my questions about what is happening here. When they were at their height, they were just incredible to watch, like just faster than everybody and so sharp. So they're not kind of where they once were. They said after the competition, they think they'll be recovered for the Olympics. But it's really been a tough to watch comeback, I would say, for those two. And the other really cool story in the pairs event is Deanna Stellato. She's going to be the oldest skater at the Olympics. She's 42.
Wow.
And sometimes the commentators talk about it like she's 102.
Disrespectful. As someone who's going to turn 40 this summer, that is disrespectful.
Right? It's coming for me too. Yes. Now, it is certainly... It's much older for skating, and it's incredible that she is competing at the highest level. I'm trying to think I think Evan Bates from the US might be 37. Like, he's not so far behind her. A lot of the ice dancers are in their 30s. Pairs is much harder on the body in terms of like the impact from throw jumps, impact on your knees, all of that. So it's incredible that she's out there. She's from the US. She was a really great up-and-coming skater in the early 2000s, and then she got injured and retired, and she always had this like regret that her career didn't end the way she wanted it to. So she came back as a pair skater. She skated with a couple people in the US. She found the right partner for her in Canada. Not only are there not often partners, like it takes a while to find the right person sometimes. And so now she skates for Canada. She got her citizenship, I think it was this fall, like in time, something they were a little bit worried about. They've won the world championships, but the past 2 years have been a little bumpy, kind of a lot of pressure from winning worlds. And, so they're hoping for a medal, and there's a documentary about her Olympic journey. It's called Deanna's Dream, and it's on the Olympic Channel. I think you can watch it on Olympics.com. I definitely want to watch it. I have a lot of TV to watch after this. Finding Her Edge, Deanna's Dream.
You might regret one of those things, but it's going to entertain you.
Probably not like the inspiring 42-year-old woman at the Olympics.
No, not her. She will continue to, reward your investment.
And she's very, everyone describes her as really intense. And she talks a lot in the documentary about like there's backlash to her intensity, and she feels like as a woman, that's why she's getting that. She's like, she doesn't want to have to apologize for her emotions and for how she's going after her goals. So she talks about that in the documentary. She also just debuted outfits by Oscar de la Renta at the Canadian Nationals. So there's a designer aspect of what we'll be looking at her wearing, and in Milan. So there's a lot there. And then there's probably much more of the favorites for gold are from Japan. It's Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara. They're 2-time world champions. They're the favorites. And they're from Japan, but they train in Canada, and it's a little more rare for Japanese skaters to leave and train somewhere else. They really like risked a lot, leaving their whole life behind. And then there's an Italian team that would be so cool if they won a medal on home ice. Sarah Conti and Niccolo Macci. And she just hurt her knee, so we'll see what happens. They skipped the European Championships. And they're interesting. They were dating and then started skating together, and now they're no longer dating, and they're still doing great. They are committed to their on-ice partnership.
Plot twist. Wow.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, real quick, I do want to cover the men's figure skating competition and then this team competition, which is sort of newer and interesting. So for the men, like what do we need to pay attention to?
The men, it's going to be Ilya Malinin's show. They're like, the only way he doesn't win is if he misses the plane or something. Like he won his last competition by 30 points.
Wow.
Yes. So he's the first person to do 7 quad jumps in a program. So the quads go around 4 times. There's still there's a handful of women doing, not even a handful of women. The women don't do quads as much. Men do quads. Usually people will do 1 or 2 in a free skate. Nathan Chen from the US at the last Olympics, he did multiple. I forget how many. But so Ilya is the self-described quad god. And since he was a teen, and that earned some side eye from me. I was like, this child has given himself this nickname, but he has more than earned it. So other skaters are going to be lucky to do 2 quads, and he's done 7. So
but
he's lived up.
I don't know.
It's so
Maura,
tough.
That's so tough. Oh my God.
He has merch too. If you get on board, he has merch.
Nope. I don't see that happening, but I mean, I'm happy for him, but.
So Ilya, he's 21. And both his parents were Olympic skaters from Uzbekistan, and he has some sort of like Russian sensibilities about him for sure. But yeah, so he's the quad god. His free skate has voiceovers of his own speaking. I know.
I'm sorry. No, that is so ridiculous.
It is maybe not my cup of tea, but he believes in it so much.
Do they just giggle while that's happening, like in the stands?
I think some people do. I think some people are on board. I think it could go either way.
Ooh.
I'm not a fan of a voiceover. It has to be really helpful to telling the story. And in general, I don't think there should be like talking in the middle of the let alone. And it's not clear. I don't know if it's his own writing as well. But so he's committed. His style is not everyone's preference, but he is committed to his vision. Other things to watch in the men's event, Yuma Kageyama from Japan is skating to the opera Turandot, and it's the other side of Ilya's coin. Ilya is this sort of athletic, backflipping skater, and then Yuma is just it harkens back to the Michelle Kwan days and those intangibles you were talking about. Oof. So Yuma is beautiful to watch. It probably won't touch Ilya in the points because he doesn't have as many quads, which is kind of a philosophical thing skating needs to confront in the scoring. But so definitely watch for Yuma. And then from the US, Maxime Naumov made the team, and he lost his parents, who were also his coaches, in the plane crash last year. So it's amazing to me he's getting out of bed, let alone training for the Olympics and making the Olympic team. His strength is incredible, and he's a great skater to watch too. So that's another one to keep an eye out for.
I can't fathom that. Wow. I will definitely be, I'm rooting for him because I really also just am a little bit worried for him because it seems like the Olympics are famous for very exploitive human interest stories.
Yes.
And so I'm a little bit concerned that on top of having to just walk through this competition and skate his routines, that he's going to have to deal with people who don't have healthy boundaries around what is appropriate to ask someone.
Yeah. And I know there was some chatter about that online in terms of how it was covered at the national championships. I was there in person, so I wasn't watching any of it. on TV, so I don't have a perspective on that, but I know that's definitely something people are thinking about. And I know he has he's got a good team and a group around him that are hopefully going to keep it where he's comfortable.
That's good to hear at the very least. But wow, that's just so tragic and sad. But yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on him. Ilya, kind of not hearing a lot of great things to root for, but we'll see.
You have to keep me posted if he wins you over.
Yeah, I'll text you and I'll just be like, no. It's a no
just
for me,
as I
dog.
suspected.
Yeah, just as I suspected. This is a no for me. But, you know, I mean, something that I would love to ask you about is like when we were talking about, you know, the trans policy, the sexuality kind of policy, if you will, or kind of gender policies, they seem so strict on that. Like the binaries have really hardened of what's allowed and what's not allowed. But it does seem to me, and again, I'm not an expert in this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm reading a lot about people who are like, well, I used to compete with Italy, but then I just got citizenship with France, so I'm going to be competing with France. What is the deal with that? Like in a competition that is defined by nationalism, we have this very porous attitude towards it when it's convenient, it seems. So what's going on with that?
Yes, definitely. Skating is a sport where there's a lot of kind of country hopping, for lack of a better word. And a lot of it comes back to what we've been talking about partnerships and finding the right person to skate with. And sometimes that person is not in your country. Sometimes, I mean, more often than not, for people who compete at a high level, they have to move to a big training center and leave home to find a partner. And so it's not going to be someone from where they live. And then a lot of times at these training centers are a lot of high level skaters from different countries, and you have the opportunity to maybe try out with them, pair up with them, see how it's going to work. So they're already sort of in each other's environment, and it really, choosing a partner in these events, like pairs, there's some height things to be aware of that just for safety. And the same, it's not absolute by any means, but you want to be with someone that is like, it's sort of a good fit safety wise for lifting and spinning and all of those things. Certainly it's not absolute. Like the Chalk and Bates, the ice dancers that I mentioned, he's a foot taller than her. And people are like, that's not going to work. He's way too big. And they've won 3 world championships. So
they figured it out.
They figured it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's certainly ways to figure it out. So a lot of times the partner maybe that is the best fit for you for any number of reasons, like personality, if kids are coming together to skate, if the families work well together, like all of that. Sometimes it's a person who's not from your country. And it really depends on the country, how maybe easy or difficult it is to change your nationality. So actually the 2 other dance teams from the US had partners who needed to get US citizenship before these Olympics. And they've been on long, like almost decade-long journeys to get citizenship. So Emily Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik. Vadim's a Ukrainian citizen, or Vadim's from Ukraine. He's a U.S. citizen now because he got his citizenship. He's lived in the U.S. for a decade. He's been skating here, training here with multiple partners. He had this long journey to become a citizen for the Olympics. The other U.S. team, Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko. Christina's from Montreal, moved to Michigan to skate and train. That's where she found her partner. And she's had this long journey to become a U.S. citizen as well. They actually train in Canada again now. And she was living in Michigan and driving across the border every day. And she tells stories of like the border people were like invested in their, like, how was your competition? How, like, just
That's
doing
sweet.
this crazy commute to have her residency requirement and things like that. So in some cases, it's like, this is the partner for me and we will figure out the nationality stuff. And sometimes it goes crazy. Like there are stories of competitors like writing letters to senators to not support citizenship campaigns for certain skaters. Like sometimes it can get a little crazy. And there's also like every every country is different. Some have really strict requirements in terms of like language or residency that make it harder. And then like Fournier, Baudry, and Cizeron, she just suddenly had French citizenship in the news. So I don't know what the rules are in France. And I know certain countries maybe have different exceptions for athletes of high ability. But it's certainly not absolute across the board.
Right.
It depends on the country. I know like Cristina Carrera applied as like an alien of extraordinary ability is a way that some people have been able to get citizenship, and they told her she didn't have extraordinary ability herself because she was part of a team. So yeah, which is a little crazy. So it's very complicated for sure.
Yeah, and I guess it'll just be interesting, again, thinking about how the media and so on will tell stories about this during the Olympics, like at a time when, you know, the U.S. government could not be more anti-immigrant. Like, how will we tell stories about people who are able, because of their athletic ability, to navigate systems that are
and have the resources, and all of that. The U.S. champion pair team is not going to the Olympics because the female skater doesn't have citizenship, and there were all these rumblings like it's gonna happen last minute, she's gonna get it, and everyone at the national championships was like, what is this gonna look like in this climate, in this world we're living in today? And it did not. That is not what happened. She didn't like, she's applied for a green card and all that. It just wasn't soon enough. But everyone was sort of like, how is this going to look if this does come through? And then it didn't. But yeah, it begs that question.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I'm wondering about this team competition, because it just seems like, do we need this team competition? Like, what is this?
Great question. I compare it to the team event in gymnastics. Except in gymnastics, the team event is the thing, and the individual all around too, I know. But so the team event is newer to skating. 2014 was the first Olympics they added this. And it's great in that it's another opportunity for skaters to earn a medal. I think it definitely, talk to the skaters who have to compete really close in a row in Milan, and they might have something to say about whether do we need it or not. I don't know. But then at the same time, like, that's going to be really tiring. The ice dance event starts very close. Ice dance finishes in the team event on Saturday, and they have to do their individual event on Monday. That's not a lot of time to rest and build back up to do the same thing over again. So be interested to hear what the athletes think. Now, if they're going into their individual event as Olympic team gold medalists, they'll probably be feeling pretty good. So it's a great opportunity to win another medal. And it's set up, there's 10 teams. They qualify to compete in the team event by their results the previous season. And 10 teams will skate the short program. There will be men's, women's, pair, and a dance team from each of the 10 countries. They skate their short programs, earn points. The top 5 go on to the free skate. And then those points are tallied, and then they can earn their team medals. First, second, third. And the U.S. and Japan are probably fighting for that gold medal. The U.S. won the gold in 2022, but it was a long, drawn-out, fraught situation because Russia won initially, and then there was revealed that one of the athletes had a positive doping test. So they just got the U.S. skaters and the Japanese skaters just got their gold and silver medals in Paris in 2024 that they earned in Beijing in 2022.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a long, drawn-out court process. So that's kind of, they'll probably be going for the gold, and then Italy, the home team, has a great chance, and then Georgia as well will be in there for a medal. And this is where it really helps if you have solid competitors across all the events. And there's some strategy. You can sub out 2 skaters or teams. So the same person doesn't have to do both events. So you could do that. Or there's some strategy plays in. Do we want Ilya to do both programs, or put in one of the other men? We have great ice dance teams, but do we just want to stick with our top one because we think they'll probably win? There's some strategy at play for if they swap out different skaters for the free skate.
Wow. Well, this is a lot to think about. Yeah.
It is.
But
it's going to be crazy, like you said.
It's going to be crazy. I mean, I kind of like watching just because it's kind of like why I like to go on a house museum tour. It's like, yes, I like learning about the house, but I also just like the performance of the tour guide. Like, what is the story we're going to get here?
Yes.
I'm not evaluating it based on whether it's true, but just sort of like what kind of camp theatrics are we going to see? What feats of skill? And, in a similar way, that's how I approached the figure skating competition in the Olympics. So I'm so glad that you could be here to give us this primer, like such interesting history and like context for all of this. And yeah, I'm just really excited to watch, and maybe you can join us on the Landline Patreon chat and we can get into some figure skating convo or something.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you. I'm so happy to be on Landline and happy for all that's to come with it.
Thanks so much to Maura for joining me, and thank you for listening. As I mentioned up top, Maura has graciously agreed to join us on Patreon to watch the Women's Short Program competition on February 17th, where she will answer your questions and offer hot takes, and I hope everyone will do that. I'll be doing that myself, even though I'm by no means an expert. You can join us by joining my Patreon. There you'll find chat rooms reminiscent of AIM Buddy List, where we talk all things pop culture, history, and more. For more information on the show and to find the resources mentioned in this episode, check the show notes. There you'll also find the link to my Patreon, where you can find even more research, info, and hot takes. As a member of my Patreon, you'll get a weekly newsletter and bi-weekly episodes delivered to you all for free. For $5 a month, you can get a bonus episode, a weekly newsletter of links and recommendations, chat with other listeners about all things pop culture and history, suggest topics for future episodes, and more. It also helps support my work. Please tell a friend about the show and rate and review it wherever you listen to help me spread the word. You can follow me on Instagram at Mimi Mahoney, where my love language really is funny memes about Jessica Fletcher. Thanks for joining me, and I'll call again soon.